My fiancé, Ethan, loves my sister Clara. He thinks she's a pure, innocent angel, a delicate flower that needs his protection. He doesn't see the cruel glint in her eyes, the way she twists her words to make herself look like the victim. He doesn't see it because in our last life, I shielded him from it. I protected him and I protected her because I was a fool. This time, I won't. The first time I realized something was wrong, really wrong, wasn't some grand, dramatic reveal. It was small, almost insignificant. We were at a family dinner celebrating Clara's acceptance into a prestigious art program. Ethan, ever the doting almost brother in law, raised his glass. To Clara, he said, his voice full of that sickeningly sweet admiration he always reserved for her. May your talent shine as brightly as you do. Clara blushed, ducking her head with that practiced modesty she'd perfected. Oh, Ethan, you're too kind. I watched them, a cold knot forming in my stomach. It wasn't the toast itself, but the way Ethan looked at her. It was proprietary, like he had some claim on her success. Like I wasn't sitting right there, his fiancée, the woman he was supposed to marry in 3 months. My mother, ever perceptive, noticed my discomfort. She squeezed my hand under the table. Don't worry, darling, she whispered. He's just being polite. But it wasn't politeness. I knew that even then. I'd seen that look before, in the last life. The look that preceded the whispered confessions, the stolen kisses, the eventual gut-wrenching betrayal. The difference was, this time, I knew what was coming. In our previous life, I had been blindsided by love, by trust, by the naive belief that the people I cherished would never hurt me. I had fought for Ethan, pleaded with him, tried to convince him that Clara was manipulating him. I had even tried to protect Clara, believing that her actions were born of insecurity, of a desperate need for attention. I had been wrong. So wrong. Their affair had come to light in the most brutal way possible. At our wedding, Clara, dressed in a deceptively simple white dress, had confessed everything in front of our families, our friends, everyone. She had painted herself as the tragic heroine, forced into a forbidden love by Ethan's overwhelming passion. Ethan, to his credit, and it was a very small credit, had looked ashamed. But he hadn't denied it. He hadn't defended me. He had simply stood there, silent, while my world crumbled around me. The humiliation, the pain, the sheer, unadulterated betrayal, it had broken me. I had run away, lost myself in a haze of grief and despair. And in the end, I had died, alone and heartbroken. But then, I woke up, back in my 18-year-old body, a week before Ethan proposed. A second chance, a chance to rewrite the story, and this time, I wouldn't be the victim. The proposal, when it came, was exactly as I remembered. A romantic dinner at our favorite restaurant, a heartfelt speech about our future, a sparkling diamond ring. In the last life, I had cried tears of joy. This time, I felt nothing but a cold, detached amusement. Yes, Ethan, I said, my voice steady, my smile perfectly in place. I'll marry you. He beamed, pulling me into a hug. I allowed it, letting him feel the warmth of my body, the warmth he would soon crave and be denied. It was a cruel game, I knew, but I didn't care. They had played a far crueler one with me. The engagement party was a lavish affair, held at my parents' sprawling estate. Clara, of course, was the center of attention, flitting around in a pale blue dress that made her look ethereal and innocent. Ethan followed her with his eyes, a lovesick puppy dog. I watched them, a silent observer, taking note of every stolen glance, every lingering touch. I saw my parents' concerned looks, my friends' whispered questions. They didn't understand why I wasn't reacting, why I wasn't fighting for my fiancé. Are you all right, Amelia? My best friend Sophie asked, her voice full of worry. I'm fine, Sophie, I said, offering her a reassuring smile. Just a little overwhelmed, that's all. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't press the issue. Sophie, bless her heart, had always been too trusting, too quick to believe the best in people. She couldn't see the darkness that lurked beneath Clara's sweet facade, but I could, and I was waiting, The first deliberate step I took was subtle. I started to accidentally leave my phone unlocked, with messages from Ethan displayed prominently. Messages where he gushed about Clara's artistic soul, her unique perspective, her fragile beauty. Messages that, taken out of context, could be interpreted as deeply inappropriate. I made sure Clara saw them. I watched her carefully, the flicker of triumph in her eyes as she read the messages, the smug little smile that played on her lips. She thought she was winning. She thought she was pulling the wool over everyone's eyes. Then I started to withdraw from Ethan, ever so slightly. I was busy with work, with wedding preparations, with anything that kept me away from him. I made sure he felt neglected, overlooked, while simultaneously praising Clara's dedication to her art, her passion, her drive. I was building him up and tearing him down, all at the same time. One evening, about a month before the wedding, Ethan came to my apartment, his face a mask of frustration. "Amelia, we need to talk," he said, his voice tight. "Of course, Ethan," I said, gesturing for him to sit down. "What's on your mind?" He paced the room, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. I feel like we're drifting apart, like you're not present." I feigned surprise. "Not present, Ethan. I'm planning our wedding. I'm juggling a million things. Of course, I'm a little stressed." "But it's more than that," he insisted. "You're distant. You don't look at me the way you used to." Ah, there it was, the insecurity, the doubt. I had planted the seed, and now it was starting to sprout. "Ethan," I said softly, reaching out to take his hand. "I love you. You know that. But I also know that you've been distracted lately, with Clara." His hand flinched in mine. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. "It's all right," I said, forcing a gentle smile. "I understand. She's captivating. She has a way of drawing people in. And you're an artist yourself, Ethan. You appreciate beauty, creativity. I can see why you're drawn to her." He stared at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of guilt and confusion. "Amelia, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I said, squeezing his hand. "Just be honest with yourself, Ethan, and be honest with me." I let go of his hand and stood up, walking over to the window. "I need some air," I said, my voice trembling slightly, a perfect imitation of the heartbroken woman I was supposed to be. "I'll see you later." I left him there, alone with his thoughts, his guilt, his burgeoning infatuation with Clara. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, but I couldn't stop. I was driven by a cold, burning need for retribution. The next few weeks were a carefully orchestrated dance. I continued to be the supportive, understanding fiancé, while subtly pushing Ethan and Clara closer together. I accidentally left them alone together. I forgot to mention plans that would have kept them apart. I even started to confide in Clara about my concerns about Ethan's growing distance. Clara, of course, lapped it up. She played the concerned sister, offering me a shoulder to cry on, all the while fueling Ethan's infatuation with her own carefully crafted displays of vulnerability and artistic passion. One rainy afternoon, I found them in the garden, huddled together under a large umbrella. Ethan was sketching Clara, his gaze intense, his hand hovering over hers as he guided her brushstrokes. I stood there for a moment, unnoticed, watching them. The scene was almost a parody of romantic cliches. The brooding artist, the ethereal muse, the forbidden love. It would have been laughable if it weren't so infuriating. I cleared my throat, and they both jumped, startled. "Amelia," Ethan said, his voice a little too loud, a little too cheerful. "I didn't see you there." "Obviously," I said, my voice dry. I looked at Clara, her cheeks flushed, her eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and guilt. "Don't let me interrupt your artistic collaboration." I turned and walked away, leaving them to their awkward silence. I knew I had rattled them, shaken their confidence, and that was exactly what I wanted. The climax came, as I knew it would, at the rehearsal dinner. The night before the wedding, that would never happen. Ethan had been unusually quiet all evening, avoiding my gaze, fidgeting with his tie. Clara, on the other hand, was radiant, her eyes sparkling with a manic energy that I recognized all too well. After dinner, as the guests were mingling, Ethan pulled me aside. Amelia, we need to talk, he said, his voice low and urgent. I looked at him, my expression carefully neutral. Of course, Ethan. What is it? He took a deep breath, his eyes darting around nervously. I I can't go through with this, with the wedding. I feigned shock, widening my eyes. What? Ethan, what are you talking about? I I'm in love with Clara, he blurted out, the words tumbling out in a rush. I have been for a while now. I'm so sorry, Amelia. I never meant to hurt you. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment, letting the words sink in, letting the pain, the pretend pain, wash over me. Then I took a step back, my voice trembling. You're in love with Clara? He nodded, his eyes pleading for understanding, for forgiveness. I know it's wrong. I know it's terrible, but I can't help it. She she understands me in a way you never have. She sees my soul. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Your soul? Ethan, you're such a cliche. He flinched, but he didn't back down. I know this is hurting you, Amelia, and I'm truly sorry, but I can't live a lie. I have to be true to my heart. And what about my heart, Ethan? I asked, my voice rising slightly. What about the promises you made to me? What about our future? He looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I I can't explain it. I need to be with Clara. I took a deep breath, gathering my strength. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for, the moment of my revenge. All right, Ethan, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. If that's what you want, then I won't stop you. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with surprise and a flicker of relief. You won't? No, I said, shaking my head. I won't. I want you to be happy, Ethan, even if it's not with me. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there stunned and speechless. I walked back into the party, my head held high, a small smile playing on my lips. I found Clara standing near the bar, sipping champagne, her eyes searching the room for Ethan. She saw me and her smile faltered. Amelia, she said, her voice hesitant, is everything all right? I stopped in front of her, looking her directly in the eyes. Everything is perfect, Clara, I said, my voice clear and strong. Ethan just told me everything. He told me he's in love with you. Clara's eyes widened and a slow smile spread across her face, a smile of triumph, of victory. He did. Yes, I said, nodding. And I told him I wouldn't stand in his way. I told him I want him to be happy. Clara's smile grew even wider. Oh, Amelia, you're so generous, so understanding. I am, aren't I? I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. But then again, I always knew this would happen. I knew you two were meant to be together. I could see the confusion starting to creep into Clara's eyes. My calmness, my lack of anger, it was unsettling her. Good. I don't understand, Clara said, her voice no longer so confident. Don't worry, darling sister, I said, moving closer and lowering my voice and loud enough for people to hear. You will. I took a sip of my own champagne, my gaze never leaving Clara's. The party continued around us, oblivious to the drama that was unfolding. But I knew that the real show was about to begin. And this time, I would be the one directing it. This time, Ethan and Clara would be the ones left broken and humiliated. This time, I would get my revenge. And it was oh so sweet. The next morning, the day that was supposed to be my wedding day, dawned bright and sunny. A cruel irony, I thought, as I stared out the window of my bedroom. The birds were singing, the flowers were blooming, and the world was utterly, blissfully unaware of the chaos that was about to erupt. I had barely slept. Not from grief or even anxiety, but from a simmering, anticipatory excitement. The stage was set. The players were in position. And I, the wronged fiancé, was about to become the puppeteer. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. Amelia, can we talk, please? I ignored it, let him stew. Let him wonder what I was going to do. Let him feel a fraction of the panic and uncertainty I had felt in our last life. Another message, this time from Clara. Amelia, I'm so sorry. Never wanted to hurt you. Can we talk? I snorted. So sorry. Right. I ignored that one too. I dressed carefully, choosing a simple, elegant black dress. Not a morning dress, no. A power dress. A dress that said, I am in control. I applied my makeup with a steady hand, a touch of red lipstick for defiance, a smoky eye for mystery. I was ready. My parents were understandably distraught. They had tried to talk to me last night after Ethan's dramatic announcement, but I had brushed them off, assuring them that I was fine, that I needed time to process things. They had looked at me with a mixture of pity and confusion, unable to comprehend my strange calmness. Amelia, darling, are you sure you're all right? My mother asked, her voice laced with concern as I came down the stairs. Never better, mother, I said, offering her a bright smile. In fact, I feel liberated. My father, ever the pragmatist, cleared his throat. What about the guests, the caterers, the flowers? Everything's been paid for. Don't worry, father, I said. I have a plan. And I did. A plan that had been brewing in my mind since the moment I woke up in this second life. A plan that would expose Ethan and Clara's treachery, not just to our families and friends, but to the entire world. And I had, over the past few weeks, subtly cultivated a relationship with a gossip columnist, a woman named Veronica Vance, known for her ruthless exposés and her insatiable appetite for scandal. I had fed her tidbits of information, hints of a forbidden romance, a love triangle brewing within a prominent, wealthy family. I had painted a picture of myself as the innocent victim, unaware of the betrayal unfolding behind my back. Veronica, of course, had been hooked, and she was here today, disguised as one of the catering staff, ready to witness the fireworks. The guests started to arrive, unaware that the wedding they were expecting had been replaced by something far more spectacular. I greeted them with a serene smile, accepting their condolences, their confused inquiries, their veiled pity. Where's Ethan? Sophie asked, her brow furrowed with worry. And Clara? What's going on, Amelia? All will be revealed soon, Sophie, I said, my voice enigmatic. Just trust me. I saw Clara arrive, escorted by her parents. She was wearing a pale pink dress, a pathetic attempt at looking innocent and demure. She looked pale and nervous, her eyes darting around the room, searching for Ethan. Ethan arrived shortly after, alone. He looked even more distraught than Clara, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. He made a beeline for me, his face a mixture of desperation and fear. Amelia, please, he begged, grabbing my arm. We need to talk. You can't just... I pulled my arm away, my smile never faltering. Talk? What is there to talk about, Ethan? You made your choice. You chose Clara. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have guests to attend to. I left him standing there, speechless, as I moved through the crowd, playing the gracious hostess, the wronged bride, the picture of serene composure. The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone was waiting, anticipating, wondering what was going to happen. Finally, when everyone was assembled, I climbed onto a small stage that had been set up for the wedding ceremony. I tapped the microphone and a hush fell over the room. Good morning, everyone, I said, my voice clear and strong. As you all know, today was supposed to be my wedding day. However, as some of you may have heard, there has been a slight change of plans. I paused, letting my words sink in. I saw Ethan and Clara standing at the edge of the crowd, their faces pale with dread. My fiancé, Ethan, I continued, my voice laced with a hint of sarcasm, has decided that he is no longer in love with me. He has, in fact, fallen in love with my sister, Clara. A collective gasp rippled through the room. People started whispering, murmuring, staring at Ethan and Clara with a mixture of shock and morbid curiosity. Clara made a small, whimpering sound, and I saw her parents reach out to comfort her, their faces a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Now I could stand here and cry, I continued, raising my voice slightly. I could scream and shout and accuse them of betrayal. I could tell you how heartbroken I am, how devastated, how utterly crushed. I paused again, letting my gaze sweep across the room. But I won't, because, frankly, I'm not heartbroken. I'm not devastated. I'm relieved. A murmur of surprise went through the crowd. I saw Veronica Vance in her catering uniform scribbling furiously in a small notebook, her eyes gleaming with excitement. You see, I said, leaning into the microphone. I knew. I knew about Ethan and Clara's affair. I knew about their stolen kisses, their whispered promises, their pathetic attempts at secrecy. I saw Ethan flinch, his face turning a shade of crimson. Clara, on the other hand, was staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. I knew because I lived it before, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. In another life, I was the naive, trusting fiancé, the one who was blindsided by their betrayal. In that life, I was humiliated, heartbroken, and ultimately, I died. A stunned silence filled the room. People were staring at me as if I had lost my mind, but I didn't care. I had their attention, and I was about to deliver the final blow. But this is not that life, I said, my voice regaining its strength. This is a second chance, a chance to rewrite the story, and this time, I refuse to be the victim. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. I have here, I said, holding it up for everyone to see. Proof of Ethan and Clara's affair. Emails, text messages, photos, everything. I walked over to a nearby laptop that was connected to a large projector screen. I inserted the USB drive, and a folder appeared on the screen labeled simply, Evidence. I suggest you all take a look, I said, my voice dripping with icy calm. See for yourselves the kind of people Ethan and Clara truly are. I stepped back and chaos erupted. People surged forward, eager to see the scandalous evidence. The screen filled with images, messages, revealing the depth of Ethan and Clara's deception. I watched as the truth unfolded before their eyes. The whispered confessions of love, the clandestine meetings, the cruel remarks about me, the plans they had made for their future together. A future built on my pain. I saw the horror on my parents' faces, the disgust on my friends, the schadenfreude on the faces of those who had always secretly envied me. I saw Ethan and Clara shrinking under the weight of their exposed lies, their faces contorted with shame and humiliation. Veronica Vance was in her element, snapping photos, taking notes, her face beaming with predatory glee. This was the story of the year, and she had a front row seat. The room was a cacophony of gasps, whispers, accusations, and my parents confronted Ethan and Clara, their voices shaking with rage. Sophie, my loyal friend, was in tears, apologizing for not believing me, for not seeing through Clara's lies. I stood there amidst the chaos, feeling a strange sense of detachment. It was as if I was watching a play, a drama that I had written and directed, but in which I had no emotional stake. After what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only a few minutes, I raised my hand, and the room gradually fell silent. I think that's enough, I said, my voice calm and authoritative. I believe I've made my point. I looked at Ethan and Clara, their faces pale and defeated. I have nothing more to say to you, I said, my voice cold and devoid of emotion. I wish you both, well, I wish you nothing. Get out. They didn't argue, they didn't plead, they simply turned and fled, their heads bowed in shame, their reputations ruined, their future uncertain. The guests started to disperse, some offering me their condolences, others their congratulations, most simply staring at me with a mixture of awe and disbelief. My parents approached me, their faces etched with a mixture of anger, sadness, and a grudging admiration. Amelia, my mother said, her voice trembling, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. We should have believed you. It's all right, Mother, I said, offering her a small smile. It's over now. My father put a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm. You were incredibly brave, Amelia, he said, and incredibly ruthless. I shrugged. Sometimes ruthlessness is necessary. Sophie rushed over, throwing her arms around me. Oh, Amelia, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have known. Can you ever forgive me? Of course, Sophie, I said, hugging her back. You were just being a good friend. You believe the best in people. There's nothing wrong with that. Veronica Vance approached me, her eyes shining with excitement. Amelia, that was incredible. The story of the year. Can I get an exclusive interview? I smiled. Of course, Veronica. Let's give the people what they want. And so the story of my wedding became a national sensation. The scorned fiancé who exposed her cheating fiancé and her treacherous sister, The woman who turned the tables on her betrayers, the ultimate revenge story. I became an instant celebrity, a symbol of female empowerment, a woman who refused to be a victim. I was interviewed on television, featured in magazines, offered book deals, and movie contracts. I used my newfound fame to launch a foundation, a support network for women who had been betrayed, cheated on, humiliated. I became an advocate for self-respect, for standing up for yourself, for refusing to be silenced. Ethan and Clara, on the other hand, became pariahs. Their lives were ruined, their reputations destroyed. Ethan's art career floundered, his talent overshadowed by his scandalous behavior. Clara was ostracized by her family and friends, her dreams of artistic success shattered. They tried to apologize, to explain, to beg for forgiveness, but I refused to see them, to speak to them, to even acknowledge their existence. They had made their choice, and they had to live with the consequences. Years passed. I built a new life for myself, a life filled with purpose, with passion, with genuine connections. I found love again, a love that was built on trust, on respect, on mutual admiration. I learned that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not the person who wronged you. And I learned that revenge, while sometimes necessary, is ultimately a hollow victory. The true victory lies in moving on, in building a better life, in refusing to let the past define you. One day, I received a letter. It was from Ethan. He wrote and told of how he was homeless and how his life was difficult. No one would talk to him, nor give him a chance. And how Clara abandoned him once they became social outcasts. He expressed how he was a shell of a former self, and only though of me and asked for a way to contact me. I read the letter, feeling a flicker of something. Pity? Regret? I wasn't sure, but it wasn't enough to make me change my mind. I tore up the letter and threw it in the trash. Ethan had made his bed and he had to lie in it. And I had a life to live. A life that was finally truly my own. He expressed that he was sorry and that, looking back, he understood my actions and asked for forgiveness. He didn't ask to get back together, only to see me one last time. I thought long and hard, almost a week before I decided. The decision to see Ethan, even after all those years, wasn't an easy one. Part of me, the part that still carried the scars of his betrayal, screamed at me to refuse, to maintain the distance I had so carefully cultivated. But another part, a part that was perhaps more curious than forgiving, urged me to consider it. It wasn't about him, I realized. It wasn't about giving him closure, or absolution, or any semblance of the forgiveness he craved. It was about me, about proving to myself that I had truly moved on, that I was no longer the wounded, heartbroken girl he had left behind. So, I agreed. I sent a terse reply instructing him to meet me at a small, quiet cafe in a neutral part of town, a place where I wouldn't feel trapped, a place where I could easily escape if the meeting became too overwhelming. I arrived early, choosing a table in a discreet corner, where I could observe the entrance without being immediately visible. I ordered a black coffee, my hands surprisingly steady, my heart beating with a measured calm I hadn't expected. He walked in a few minutes later, and for a moment, I didn't recognize him. The confident, arrogant young man I had once loved was gone, replaced by a gaunt, hollow-eyed shadow. His clothes were worn and ill-fitting, his hair unkempt, his shoulders slumped with a weight that went beyond mere physical exhaustion. He spotted me and hesitated, his gaze flickering with a mixture of hope and apprehension. He approached slowly, his steps uncertain, like a man walking on eggshells. "Amelia," he said, his voice hoarse and barely audible. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." "Sit down, Ethan," I said, my voice neutral, devoid of any warmth or welcome. He slid into the chair opposite me, his hands fidgeting nervously on the table. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, perhaps looking for a trace of the woman he had once known, the woman he had so carelessly discarded. "You look different," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of surprise and something that might have been regret. "So do you," I replied, my tone blunt. "Life hasn't been kind to you, has it?" He flinched, but he didn't deny it. "No," he said softly, "it hasn't." An awkward silence fell between us, filled only with the clinking of cups and the murmur of other conversations. I sipped my coffee, letting him stew in his discomfort. I I read your letter, I said, finally breaking the silence. You said you wanted to apologize. He nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I do. More than anything, I was a fool, Amelia. A selfish, arrogant fool. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. And I've paid the price every single day since. And Clara? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. He grimaced. Clara left me shortly after, well, after everything. She couldn't handle the shame, the ostracism. She blamed me, said I had ruined her life. He gave a short, bitter laugh. She was right, of course, but I ruined yours too. I said nothing, simply observing him. He looked genuinely remorseful, genuinely broken. But it didn't change anything. It didn't erase the past. It didn't heal the wounds he had inflicted. I know I can't ask for your forgiveness, he continued, his voice cracking. I don't deserve it. But I needed to see you, to tell you how sorry I am. For everything. Why? I asked, my voice still devoid of emotion. What good will it do? It won't change what happened. It won't bring back the life I lost. He looked down at his hands, his shoulders slumping further. I know, he whispered. But maybe it will help me. Maybe it will allow me to move on, to find some peace. I considered his words, weighing them carefully. He was asking for something from me, something that I wasn't sure I was willing to give, but then again, what did it cost me? A few minutes of my time, a few carefully chosen words. I appreciate your apology, Ethan, I said finally, and I accept it. But that's all I can give you. I can't offer you friendship or understanding or any kind of reconciliation. What you did, it was unforgivable. His eyes flickered with pain, but he nodded slowly. I understand, he said. I didn't expect anything else. We sat in silence for a few more minutes, the weight of the past pressing down on us. I finished my coffee and stood up. Goodbye, Ethan, I said, my voice firm. I wish you peace. I turned and walked away without looking back. I didn't see the tears that finally spilled down his cheeks, or the way he slumped back in his chair, defeated and utterly alone. As I walked out of the cafe into the bright sunshine, I felt a sense of release. It wasn't joy or happiness or even satisfaction. It was simply closure. The final chapter of that painful story had been written, and I was finally free to move on. The years that followed were filled with growth, with healing, with a quiet contentment that I had never thought possible. My foundation thrived, helping countless women find their voice, their strength, their independence. My personal life blossomed, my marriage to David, a man who cherished and respected me, a source of constant joy and support. I never forgot Ethan or Clara or the lessons I had learned from their betrayal. But they no longer held any power over me. They were simply figures in a distant past, a reminder of the darkness I had overcome, the strength I had found within myself. One day, many years later, I received a call from my mother. She sounded hesitant, almost embarrassed. Amelia, she said, I ran into Clara today at the grocery store. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't heard Clara's name spoken in years. Oh? I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. She asked about you, my mother continued. She wanted to know how you were doing. I waited, curious despite myself. I told her you were well, my mother said. I told her you were happy. And, I prompted. And she cried, my mother said, her voice filled with a mixture of sadness and pity. She said she was sorry. For everything. She said she had made so many mistakes, and that she had lost everything that truly mattered. I said nothing. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only a weary sadness. Clara's life, like Ethan's, had been irrevocably damaged by their choices. And while I had found peace and happiness, they were still trapped in the wreckage of their past. She asked if you would ever forgive her, my mother said, her voice barely a whisper. I took a deep breath. Tell her, I said, my voice firm, that forgiveness is not mine to give. Tell her that she needs to forgive herself. I hung up the phone, feeling a sense of finality. The story was truly over. There were no more loose ends, no more lingering questions. I had moved on, and they had to find their own way. My life wasn't perfect. There were still challenges, still moments of doubt and uncertainty. But I had learned to face them with courage, with resilience, with the unwavering knowledge that I was strong, that I was worthy, that I deserved to be happy. And that, in the end, was the greatest revenge of all. Not the downfall of those who had wronged me, but the building of a life that was filled with love, with purpose, with a quiet, unwavering joy that no one could ever take away. I looked at a photo of me and David, a loving, caring, respectful man. We were in the Caribbean. We took this picture a year after we were married. I was glad I had met him. He deserved the world. He looked at me in the eyes and asked, "Who's on your mind?" I smiled, kissed him on the cheek, and snuggled close to him. I looked him in the eyes, and before I could say anything, he followed on. "Is it that guy? Is he the reason why we aren't having kids yet?" "No, David. I told you I am over it. He doesn't have power over me." He looked at me suspiciously as if he didn't believe me. "It's not about having power over you. It is about the trauma. Are you sure you do not want therapy?" I smiled. "Having kids is a huge step. I will let you know when I am ready. I am not ready yet." It has been 8 years, 2 years of dating and 6 years of marriage. Are you sure it isn't because you think, they will turn out like him? That fear of yours is creeping in again. You know our kids wouldn't be like that. I got annoyed, got up, and walked away. I stood at the balcony gazing at the skies. I smiled. I thought to myself, here we go again, therapy kids. Those two topics I hate to talk about, especially the kids part. Why is he so obsessed with having them? I am only 29. Can he give me a break? I wonder. I got interrupted from my thoughts. David hugged me from behind and gave me a kiss on my cheeks. "I am sorry, baby. It's not what I meant to do. I know you will tell me when you are ready. Please don't be mad at me." It's okay. I know how you feel. I know you don't mean any harm." "So we are good?" he asked. "Yes, we are good. And to answer your question, I wasn't thinking of him. I was thinking of Clara. My mom told me she saw her." "How is she?" he asked, uninterested. "She's not doing well. Mom said she asked of me and asked if I could ever forgive her." "Have you forgiven her?" he asked. "I told Mom forgiveness isn't mine to give and she needs to forgive herself." "That is profound. My Amelia is so wise." "I learnt from the best," I replied. "And who is the best?" he curiously asked, looking at me in the eyes, waiting for my answer. I smiled. "You, of course, silly." I pushed him away slightly as I walked to the living room. He followed me. We spent the rest of the day talking and laughing. I looked at David. "Thank you for accepting me and loving me, despite my flaws and history." He smiled. "I love you, Amelia, and I will always be here for you." And at that moment, looking at David, his eyes sincere and full of love, I finally felt at peace. Ethan and Clara were finally a shadow of the past. They had no power of my today nor my future.